let's talk about Tesla. I mean, the stock is tanking right now. The title of our YouTube, weekly live stream, I suggested should be is Elon Musk stepping down, right? And I think
Mm-hmm.
the title for that is catchy, but I think it's a realistic possibility that in the eyes of the public, he would like to be seen as stepping down. He recognizes my thought is he recognizes all the controversy he's generating and how how he's being thrown in the fire politically by both sides are starting to hate him like he envisioned, and that he doesn't want to damage his babies, SpaceX and Tesla. SpaceX already in good hands with Glenn Shotwell. He sort of stepped away. He's not really, there's no call to like stop government funding or NASA funding of SpaceX or anything like that. But there's lots of call. Like he's still in the public perception, he's still heavily tied to Tesla. But if he steps down from a public perspective and gives the CEO role to Tom Zhu, for example, then maybe there can be a decoupling in the eyes of the public perception over the coming weeks and months of Tesla and Elon Musk. So as he continues to push the needle with Twitter and free speech and what he believes in, knowing he's going to piss everyone off, then maybe it hurts Tesla less from a brand perspective if he's sort of decoupled from there as a CEO role, even though we know that he would still be play a heavy role as chairman of the board and decision maker of product architecture. He'd still maybe tweet about it from time to time, but maybe a lot less because maybe he knows he needs to decouple himself from Tesla. What do you think about that idea? What do you think about that theory?
Yeah, I mean, even just in the comments on YouTube here, we've seen so far, like overwhelmingly negative about Elon, and that's never really been the case in the last year and a half that we've been doing these. I think people are so fed up with the fact that he's been stepping in controversy. I mean, he's directly related to, or he directly caused a pretty significant share price decline just with the way that he sold for this Twitter acquisition. And on top of that, like after shareholders experienced all that pain, he's continuing to step on like political landmines and causing a lot of anxiety that I think a lot of people think is probably unwarranted. So the fact that there's even in this community of our viewers and our followers, which is overwhelmingly pro Tesla, that you've got this much kind of anti-Elon sentiment, to me that says a lot. That the time for him to be seriously considering that is maybe now more than ever before. I think
I'm not
he
opposed
does.
to it. He wants to be Elon, do his thing. I think that if there's another universe where the Tesla stock price did not crash as hard, and if the actual stock price was staying around $200 plus or $250, let's say, and it went from like 300 to like 250, and if it's just traded in line with the Nasdaq, even or a beta of 2 versus a beta of 10 in the last couple of months, then I think people would be a lot more understanding and have a lot more. Give a lot more tolerance to what Elon's doing and the controversies he's causing in the media. But I think we're tied to our money, like our wealth is so important to ourselves. Obviously it's like the top priority of so many people is to have, the appropriate wealth they need to survive and live the life they want. And when you tie that up in Tesla, and now you're losing money on Tesla, every day more, and you're attributing it because Elon's doing this or saying this about whatever and causing negative headlines, you connect the dots and you say, well, the Tesla stock price is falling coincidentally or in a correlation with Elon doing this. So it must be cause and effect, and it might be cause and effect. I don't know for sure. But there probably are some marginalizing, marginal institutional investors who are like, I don't want to touch this Tesla. It's too controversial with Elon there, and so maybe they're lightening up their positions or reluctant to buy shares at these prices, even when sellers are selling. So, maybe there is cause and effect, or maybe it's just a correlation. We don't really know for sure, but in another, parallel universe, if the stock was not tanking and it was trading in line with NASDAQ the last couple months, I don't think everyone would be nearly as upset. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with that. It's become very emotional. I mean, as far as I'd asked this question yesterday, I mean, if Tesla was at 250, 300, do you think people would be upset with Elon, even if all the antics were the same? And I think like for sure people would not be nearly as upset. So, it's like Yeah, people are definitely feeling the pain, and they're lashing out at Elon, and I think a lot of that's probably deserved on his behalf. I think it's understandable the reasons that he's doing things. If you know the way that he thinks through problems, I think it's really entirely consistent with the types of problems that he's trying to solve, and he thinks that this really is a existential crisis. This whole kind of wokeism and free speech. You can feel free to disagree with him, but I think he's like consistent with the way that he tackles all these big problems. He thinks this is a really big problem and it warrants big action. But like I think if we were in much better financial position as investors, I really think everyone would just be like, oh, Elon, like I wish you wouldn't upset people, but not like calling for him to step down or just being so
Yeah.
kind of over the top upset with him, and like to levels that we haven't seen before.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm curious though, like with the big move down today. I mean, it was obviously up quite a bit pre-market and at the open, and down 6% now with on huge volume. I know you've been tracking the volume a lot lately. Do you think
Yes.
there's a chance that Elon is selling some more right now?
It's possible, but I don't think so. It's possible. I'd say we get a Form 4 for Elon selling the last couple days, yesterday or today. I'd say that's like 10 to 25% chance. It's like not tiny, but it's not likely in my opinion, but it's still substantial. That's my guess. So I don't think he is. It wouldn't surprise me totally if he did, sell a little more because he wanted to just have enough cash to shore up Twitter's position for the next couple of years or something like that. But I know I saw last night that SpaceX is, the rumor is that maybe Elon's offloading a little SpaceX to raise some capital at a 140 billion valuation, according to a Bloomberg report. So, he might be finding other ways to raise a little bit of extra capital to help, foot the bill for Twitter and lower interest expenses on that and just shore up the debt there. And I'm not sure. What do you think? Do you think
Yeah.
he's selling?
No, I agree. I don't think he's selling. I think it's always possible, but I would agree that it's pretty unlikely. I'd say well below 50% probability. I kind of agree
Yeah.
with that range you put out there. So could be the
Yeah.
case, but I don't think he needs the cash urgently. So for him to sell at this point doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Yeah, but I have been looking at the volume. We touched on it yesterday. The last several days, like the last week or two, since he's really stepped up the controversial tweets, I've noticed that the average trading volume of Tesla, is around 80 million shares, but there's been like 90 to 95 million shares traded every day. So more than the average trading volume of Tesla every day for like the last week or two. Today is exceptionally high. But
Hmm.
if you look at the other growth tech stocks, whether it's NVIDIA, or a bunch of stocks in our repertoire we follow, including Apple or whatever. If you look at any other tech stocks, basically that are popular, you can see that the last 2 weeks, the trading volume each day has been below the average trading volume, like maybe 70% of what the average trading volume has been. So Tesla has been abnormally high relative to all the other growth tech stocks the last 2 weeks. So to me, that signals that this controversial tweets that Elon's bringing about, with getting and talking about pronouns or whatever he's been talking about, like the Twitter files, Fauci, calling him
Yeah.
a fraud, signaling that, and the Trump banning, just really messing with anyone who has any remnants of Trump derangement syndrome is really upset with Elon at this point, probably too. And
I think
so
it's beyond like it's
it's
Trump
beyond that. It's
derangement.
beyond that.
It's like
Those
COVID's
people are especially pissed, but then those are
for
the higher,
sure.
but then everyone else is getting upset
He's
too. And so you're having these like you're having people lighten. I think you're seeing portfolio managers and retail investors probably to some degree giving up on Tesla and saying like there's lots of great stocks. There's no reason we need to have Tesla. Like let's just
yeah.
lighten up our load. It's too risky. And it's decoupling Tesla's valuation, like Tesla's PE is below Chipotle. Like Rob Maurer tweeted that yesterday. It's like ridiculous. Like now it's
Oh my
well below
gosh.
Chipotle after today. It's like, and that's not even the forward PE. That's just the
That's an
current
interesting
trailing PE.
spread
But
trade, short Chipotle, long Tesla. If I want to
yeah,
look into
it
that.
seems insane. It seems insane. And if you're a long-term Tesla investor, it should not matter whatsoever. Like we know the long-term. The only thing
Mhm.
long-term Tesla investor I'd be worried about is Elon upsetting some of his good engineers or some of his top engineers getting upset by this kind of anti-woke stuff that Elon's trying to profess? And are they going to leave Tesla because they're annoyed with Elon? That would, as a long-term Tesla investor, that would be the main concern I have. I don't know what Farzad is in the comments still, but I'd be curious if he, knowing do you think some would leave because Elon's doing this stuff?
I mean, I did see Martin Vieca actually liked a lot of tweets recently that were kind of critical of Elon's take on like the Fauci COVID stuff. So I think it's very clear that some people within Tesla don't have like the agreement with Elon. I mean, it's kind of one thing if you're like just attacking the wokes or like people that are like 10% of the population, but like he's attacking all these different circles of groups. So now that like if you like really think that the COVID thing was handled well, or if you are like just a Democrat, like I think he's kind of pissing off all Democrats now instead of just like the most progressive far left Democrats. All these different circles of people. So now it's like well more than half the population. I think he's offended in some way or another recently.
Yeah, Farzad says he thinks less than 1% of the engineers would leave because of Elon's controversial stuff. He says most of them are just too busy to even care about that. And that makes sense. We're in our investor shoes. That's what we look at. We're watching CNBC or CNBS or Bloomberg or watching FinTwit tweets all day. And so and we're on social media. Most people aren't in this like level of detail with what Elon's doing every second of the day, like we are, or what he's saying. But, I think it's a real concern. And you see the stock price getting to new 52-week lows.
It's like 2-year lows now. It's like we're back to 2020 levels.
Yeah. You can't argue with that fact. Tesla's at these lows around the same time. Elon is being very controversial. It's very disheartening as a Tesla investor to see that and gets you very frustrated. And long term, it is not going to make a difference, but short term, it's hard to weather this storm, especially if you're using margin or options. It's very stressful for that segment of our business. It's really stressful. It's tough. On my personal side, I hold mostly Tesla shares on my personal account, and really almost no margin loan. I can cover at any time, basically the margin loan. But so I'm feeling safe, but it's still disappointing to see my net worth continuously go down to new, it's lower and lower. So I think as a long-term investor, you can't be that upset. In the end, Tesla's going to grow, to be whatever it's going to be. But for a year, I could see this going on for a year or two. To be honest, I could see Tesla's PE getting. I mentioned it on Dave Lee yesterday, his channel. I could see the PE getting ridiculously low to like 10 or 5. Just because it's such like, don't touch that stock. It's too politically divisive. Like every institutional manager's like, yeah, great company, but great product, but that one's way too crazy. No one, don't touch. It's blacklisted from our portfolio. It's like, I can see that happening potentially. I don't, and some people will dip their toes in, but they'll be burned as it continues to crash down. And there will be a time period where it comes back up eventually, but that could be, I think it could be a year or two from now. It doesn't have to be in 6 months. I don't know, man. You're a little more optimistic though, right?
Well, like a 10 PE to me doesn't make any sense, let alone a 5. I mean, I obviously multiple compression can continue to happen, but in my mind, to have the stock get down to like a PE of 10, that just like I would really struggle to understand that. That's
I would. The only way I could understand it is if it's just like so politically divisive because Elon's still associated in with the company and everyone hates Elon and like that they're just like, don't touch it. Our investors will hate us if we touch it because all our investors don't want us to, just like oil and gas. Don't go into, Philip Morris or don't go into, the Vice stocks. Like Tesla's seen as like such a bad, like tainted image with Elon pissing so many people off. Like that's worst case scenario. I see that as a possibility. I don't think it's likely, but I see it as a possibility.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I mean that would be like we're at like a 50 trailing PE right now, so that would be going down 80%. Like I just don't.
I don't think it would happen right away. I think it would happen over like 6 to 12 months, and Tesla's fundamentals would grow at the same time. So maybe the stock price would just be like, because their fundamentals are growing so much, their revenue bottom line is growing so much, maybe their stock is cut in half from here, 6 to 12 months from now.
So if earnings doubles and the stock is cut in half, I mean that's just
yeah,
that's kind of what
That's sort of what
Yeah,
just
but then
happened.
like that peg ratio would be, like a 0.2 or something like that, just like absurd.
Yeah,
So
it'd be absurd.
like
But
I
didn't
don't
that
I
just
really don't think that's
happen?
possible.
Didn't it
Like,
just happen the last few months where the revenues sort of doubled and the PE got, you know, put cut
well,
by
PE getting cut
80%?
in. Oh no, because like I mean, the trailing PE at one point was like 233 or
Yeah, it was
something
like
like that. I
it
think
was
it's not,
not
but
even
that's
yeah,
like when you're just turning the corner on profitability. So like
yeah,
PE
yeah,
at that point is not super impactful.
yeah.
Um, but I think there's just enough value traders out there, and
I
like
would hope so.
hedge funds, and that, like, I think if you get to the point where like you could just go on like Bloomberg and do like a search for low peg ratio companies, you say, oh, like Tesla's at a peg of like 0.5, like sure, let's just buy. So
Yeah,
I
most
really
people don't
think,
even know what PEG means. I hardly know what PEG means. I just know it's like a good number. I have to see the formula and calculate it in my head to really, like, compute it. I still have
yeah,
to do it again. Like, I know there's a statistic that shows the growth, but I don't mathematically, I have to, like, work out the numbers in a form and put it on paper a few times to really compute. I think most people are sort of like that with the PEG. Like, I know you've done it in models enough to, like, understand it fully, but institutional managers are more in line with you. They're doing this stuff regularly. But I think from the average investor perspective, it could be seen as like, you know, an untouchable investment. Like you don't want to touch that, Like I
yeah,
think it could be so bad, the branding. And that's why I think Elon knows he needs to step down as CEO. I think there's that rumor. I think I wouldn't be surprised if there's
the
truth
Tom
to that
Zhu.
rumor with Tom Zhu. Yeah, I think maybe it was
Yeah,
floated out there a little early to kind of get the sentiment and make sure everyone didn't get super upset. And now maybe possibly it was floated out there on purpose just to, see what would happen in the reaction and people didn't get, I don't know, but maybe it wasn't floated. But I think it wasn't denied by Tesla, so Tesla China didn't deny
yeah,
it, just clarified it a little bit, right? But or the news organization clarified it with their sources. So I think there's a realistic possibility Elon's around the corner from stepping down, and maybe that's what that urgent board call was the other night that he had on the, he had an urgent board call and he's late to a Twitter Spaces meeting. He's like, yeah, but urgent board thing, maybe they're getting ready to officially show that Elon's not the CEO anymore, global CEO or something, has some other role. Techno King,
yeah.
they
I mean,
make up.
I think it would be a good thing for the company. I think it would be a good thing for Elon too. Like, Elon doesn't like all the kind of day-to-day responsibilities of being CEO. He's been very clear that like he likes the product design part of it. So I think if you do have Tom Zhu step forward and kind of take over automotive, leave Elon in charge of AI, and
Yeah,
eventually probably find someone to manage the like energy side of the business in a more senior role,
yeah,
um, and have Elon be chairman,
makes
because I think
sense.
he could be
Yeah,
chairman with that SEC settlement, but not chairman and
yeah,
CEO.
yeah.
Yeah, like I think that would really cause a lot of positive sentiment change.
Yeah, what if the
Uh,
stock goes up 25% in one day on that news? I could see that, right? I could see the stock zipping
I
up.
could see that too.
Yeah,
I mean, you could and I don't think they would announce that until like the Q1 call. So like a little over a month from now, or sorry, the Q4 call.
yeah,
But if like I could see that you've got decent Q1 or Q1, keep on to jump forward to Q1, decent Q4 numbers, and like a good transition plan, and Elon's going to still be around, but more on like a design and like long-term guidance, strategy guidance.
yeah,
Uh, Kind of capacity, and he's distancing himself from the being the public face of the company in a little bit, and you've got a guy like Tom stepping forward and handling all the
manufacturing,
yeah,
ramping up of all the factories. I mean, it seems like that's his forte. Shanghai, look what they did. They're the gem of Tesla. If they can reproduce that type of efficiency and manufacturing ramp at their other factories, that's gold right there. Like, so he rightfully earned that spot in my mind. I've heard great things about him. I've tried to watch some videos. I don't know if he speaks English. Maybe he does speak English, but I don't see any interviews of him trying to speak English. But it would be interesting to see him take that spot.
yeah. Yeah, it's so funny how everyone's kind of got behind this idea, but yeah, we haven't heard him talk. Like, I really don't know like much about him at all, honestly, other than like Tesla China obviously is doing a very good job.
Yeah.
So
I hope at the next chance someone gets to ask him this about Tom Zhu, like say, "Hey, there's been rumors of Tom Zhu taking over as global CEO. What do you think? Is he, worthy, or is it someone you've been thinking about? That could be the person. What was at the deposition recently? One of the board members said that Elon's picked someone to succeed him or something like that.
yeah,
So maybe it's Tom Zhu, and Elon's comfortable with that, and maybe he'll. I'd love to hear someone ask him that in an interview coming, because he does these off the cuff interviews on Spaces or wherever, every few days now, it seems like. So we'll find out. Someone will, probably sooner or later.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I've never seen the sentiment in the comments so negative. It's like
Yeah.
the last couple of weeks it's been tough, but like it's like we hit some turning point today, and everyone's just like so mad and like so frustrated
Well,
about all this stuff.
I would think almost everyone who's following us, unless you've been a longtime investor of Tesla, which, I would say more than 80% of retail investors in Tesla, nominally speaking, not like net worth wise, but just nominally, like number of retail investors, I'd say 80% of retail investors have bought Tesla in the last 2 years. What do you think, Matt? Or initially bought their Tesla in the last 2 years, two and a half
Initially, yeah, probably. I mean, it
Because
that seems
that
about
run up,
right. I mean,
that run
I
up
just
brought
like
in
in
so many
terms of
retail
like
investors.
the Twitter community. I mean, back when I was, tweeting about this stuff for the first time, like in 2019, it really felt lonely. Like the number of people who are still around from those days relative to, well, like the percentage of today's kind of Twitter Tesla users that were active in 2019, at least that I knew and followed, is like very small. So if that's
Yeah.
any indication, I know that's anecdotal, but it definitely seems that interest has really
Yeah.
picked up on the back of just the stock rallying so hard. So yeah,
Yeah.
I, I think and
70 to
probably
70, 80%, let's say, because
that
but
sounds
that
right.
means 70, 80% of people are probably significantly underwater at this point, with their Tesla investment. But almost any tech stock, you're underwater if you've held it that long. But yeah, Tesla in particular, you're underwater. And so people are annoyed and upset.
Yeah.